Okay, let's try and unpack this. Yakuza guarding a golf course.
Right.
Right? Suspended above a wormhole in the middle of Tokyo.
Yeah.
Right? Your attention's grabbed because that's really where our deep dive launches today.
Well, what's immediately striking is just the sheer audacity, isn't it, of that setup?
Totally.
It kind of throws conventional storytelling right out the window from the very beginning. And that deliberate embrace of the bizarre, as we'll probably explore, is really key to understanding what's going on here.
Absolutely. And the source of all this glorious madness,
Yeah.
it's an excerpt from something called batman.ninja.yakuza.league, episode 09, last episode.pdf.
Just the title?
Yeah, just the title alone kind of signals we're in for something.
Yeah.
Well, different. Think high-octane action, maybe, but filtered through this lens of sharp sarcasm. With moments of, like, genuine epic scale crashing head-on with utter ridiculousness. It's a wild fusion. You know, Batman universe, enemy visuals, multiverse chaos.
And if you look at why a title like that even works, it's because it immediately sets expectations, doesn't it? For a story that isn't bound by, like, traditional genre rules.
Right.
That playful collision of, you know, iconic figures and these seemingly completely different elements, it feels like a deliberate choice. It signals a willingness to be self-aware, maybe, and just embrace the absurd.
So our mission, if you decide to keep listening and buckle up, is basically to navigate this beautiful pandemonium and pinpoint the underlying logic. The core narrative bits that still manage to resonate somehow amidst all the interdimensional chaos. We're kind of hunting for those moments where you think, okay, that's insane, but also kind of brilliant.
Which raises a fundamental question, really, when you're faced with this kind of apparent chaos. How do you even start to analyze it?
Yeah, where do you begin?
I think the answer lies in looking beyond just the surface absurdity. You have to seek out the internal consistency, right? The motivations driving the characters, the central conflicts. Even when those conflicts involve, you know, wormhole-adjacent golf courses.
Right, okay. So where does this bizarre journey actually kick off? We're thrown straight in, really.
Yeah.
Our protagonist, who, let's face it, bears a certain resemblance to a nocturnal crime fighter, but with this distinctly world-weary tone, he's trying to get a message out. He even refers to another version of himself as a Bruce. And the voice on the other end, it's Alfred.
Of course.
Delivering his signature brand of, you know, understated British wit.
And that exchange with Alfred, it sort of serves as an anchor, doesn't it, in all the surreal stuff?
Yeah, that does.
Alfred's almost nonchalant acceptance of the Yakuza League protecting a golf course on a Tokyo wormhole. It immediately tells us that, okay, within this story's reality, the unbelievable is just normal.
Yeah, commonplace.
It's a clever way to set the tone, I think, and normalize the extraordinary right from the start.
And our hero, he's clearly having a rough one. A rough day at the Multiverse office, maybe.
Yeah.
He mentions sweating through my cowl, which is a detail that's both kind of funny and a vivid reminder of the physical discomfort of his situation.
Right.
Plus, he's narrating his actions in the third person, which is a quirk that Alfred, you know, ever the observant one, doesn't let slide. It paints this picture of a protagonist who might be slightly, I don't know, disassociated from the sheer outlandishness of it all.
Well, the third-person narration, it's an interesting device in this context, isn't it? It could suggest a kind of self-awareness, perhaps?
So,
Like the protagonist is both living the story and observing its absurdity from a bit of a distance. It adds this sort of layer of meta-commentary to what's already a pretty unconventional narrative.
Okay. Next, we get introduced to our antagonist, a rather elusive guy named Mr. Rose.
Oh, yes, Mr. Rose.
Apparently, his talent for evading capture includes the impressive feat of doing so in reverse.
Which, yeah, you don't see that every day.
Not in your average police chase. And his target, something called a space-time converter.
Right, the MacGuffin.
And Wonder Woman, or, well, character named Diana at least, is somehow involved. So even amidst the golf course drama, the stakes are clearly pretty significant.
Well, the introduction of a space-time converter, that's a familiar enough sci-fi element, right?
Yeah.
But the subsequent explanation for why it initially fails insufficient pulse energy, compounded by that dry remark about terrible Wi-Fi in this universe.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of how the narrative blends these high-stakes concepts with really mundane, relatable frustrations, just for comedic effect.
Now, here's where it gets, for me, really interesting. We suddenly cut to a flashback. Another version of our protagonist making some heroic sacrifice.
Yeah.
And in this, potentially poignant moment, our main character's internal monologue focuses on realizing that despite their different realities, they're fundamentally the same, right down to their choice of, different fabric softeners.
Which is, it's humorous, but it also kind of delves into those core themes of identity in the multiverse, doesn't it?
I guess so, yeah.
It suggests that despite all the infinite variations across realities, there's maybe an essential self that persists. And the seemingly trivial detail, the fabric softener, it actually serves to highlight how superficial some of these interdimensional differences are against the backdrop of a shared, heroic core.
And then you have Jessica, our sarcastic ninja sidekick.
Right.
Who immediately punctures any potential sentimentality with a crack about calling the Hallmark multiverse.
Yeah, typical Jessica, it sounds like.
It's a brilliant moment of just tonal whiplash. But then our protagonist throws her a curveball by mentioning Minkyo spirit.
Oh, okay.
Which prompts Jessica's entirely understandable question of whether he's bumped his head. The rapid shifts in tone, they really keep you on your toes.
Jessica's consistent sarcasm, it acts as a kind of grounding element, doesn't it?
Yeah, prevents it getting too...
Yeah, it prevents the narrative from becoming maybe overly sentimental or losing sight of its own inherent absurdity. Her reaction to the Minkyo spirit thing, it just highlights that unexpected blend of, high concept scenarios with moments of just genuine human confusion and humor.
Just when you think the level of weirdness has maybe peaked, bam, we meet Arl.
Arl, yes.
Described as a chaotic good mage witch from Earth 88. And her entrance line, a cheerful, "You're using your mean voice, be nice, and I might help save reality."
Introducing a magic-wielding character into this already, genre-bending narrative, it further just dissolves any remaining expectations of conventional superhero storytelling, right?
Totally.
And describing her as chaotic good immediately suggests a character who operates outside maybe traditional moral boundaries. Adds another layer of unpredictability.
Our protagonist's reaction is, predictably just utter bewilderment.
As you'd expect.
But Diana, ever the pragmatist, reveals she's the one who called Arl.
Oh, okay. Practical.
And then, the icing on the cake. Our hero sarcastically calls Arl the glitter mage.
Uh-oh.
And she promptly responds by literally flicking glitter into the air.
Literally glitter, okay.
You really can't make this stuff up. But somehow, in this context, it works perfectly.
Well, that interaction perfectly encapsulates the story's unique charm, I think. The seamless integration of superhero tropes, magical elements, self-aware humor.
Yeah.
The protagonist's exasperation, followed by Arl's completely literal response, it just highlights the narrative's commitment to pushing the boundaries of genre and just embracing the ridiculous.
Okay, so then the stakes escalate.
Right.
Dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
A massive tower starts to collapse, causing a fusion of Gotham and Hinomoto.
Hinomoto, okay.
That's a city merger I genuinely didn't see coming.
No, me neither.
The proposed solution. Apparently it involves transporting a 4-dimensional origami system.
A what now?
A 4-dimensional origami system back to Hinomoto to sever the link between the multiverses. Makes perfect sense, right?
Well, the 4-dimensional origami system is just a prime example of the narrative's willingness to use these fantastical, almost whimsical MacGuffins as plot drivers.
Right, yeah.
The focus isn't really on scientific plausibility, is it? It's more about creative problem solving within the established, albeit bizarre rules of this particular world.
And in classic action-adventure style, Asa, Jessica, and Buddy, yes, there's a buddy involved now.
Buddy, okay.
They step forward with a united, "We got this."
Teamwork.
What follows is described as an epic anime-style fight scene, complete with yelling origami mechs and absurd martial arts physics.
Of course. Gotta have that.
We even get a specific attack name, the Hargonate technique, Rising Dragon of Valor.
Wow, okay.
Which apparently leaves the enemy simultaneously in agony and awe.
That scene clearly draws inspiration from, the conventions of anime fights, emphasizing the over-the-top action, dramatic yelling, physics-defying stuff, and the enemy's dual reaction, pain and awe. That's a common trope in that genre, isn't it? It highlights the spectacle and the impact of these really exaggerated battles.
So with the tower crisis averted, the origami system deployed, Arlo poses a rather intriguing question.
Oh.
Did they actually fix history, or did they just create a glittery detour?
Good question.
Our protagonist, ever the pragmatist and perhaps a tad concerned with appearances, declares the multiverse back to normal.
Right. Fixed.
And importantly, that his hairstyle is still great. Priorities, people.
Well, Arl's question introduces that classic time travel paradox, doesn't it? The potential for even well-intentioned actions to have unforeseen lasting consequences.
Yeah.
And the protagonist's immediate concern for his hair just offers a humorous counterpoint to the, weighty philosophical implications of what they just did.
However, not everyone is equally pleased with the outcome.
Ah.
Jessica, it turns out.
Oh.
She's less worried about the fabric of reality and more concerned about the damage saltwater did to her hair.
Understandable, I suppose.
Buddy's well-meaning suggestion of a hat is met with a rather emphatic refusal, involving a Yeti, apparently.
Oh, Yeti.
It's just a reminder that even when facing multiversal threats, personal grievances persist, right?
Yeah, that small character-driven moment, it underscores the narrative's ability to blend the epic with the everyday.
Exactly.
It highlights that relatable human tendency to focus on personal concerns, even amidst these extraordinary circumstances. Adds a layer of kind of groundedness to the fantastical events.
So back at headquarters, things have returned to some kind of normalcy, except our hero is late for the workly meeting.
Uh-oh. Tardiness.
His excuse. The incredibly relatable time travel's exhausting.
Fair enough, I guess.
Miss Ben, who's described as a stylish chaos agent, I love that title,
We do.
offers him a wig, which he politely declines. And then with a flash of glitter,
Let me guess. Arl.
Arl vanishes. But not before leaving a cheeky Miss Me in her wake.
The return to a mundane setting, like a meeting, after such outlandish events, it really emphasizes the cyclical nature of these characters' lives, maybe. And Arl's sudden departure just reinforces her unpredictable nature and, leaves the door open for future chaotic interventions.
And Buddy, in a moment that I think perfectly sums up the listener experience, perhaps, says, I still don't know what happened, but I think I loved it.
Yeah.
I suspect many who've just heard this might feel exactly the same way.
Buddy's reaction really serves as a knowing nod to the audience, doesn't it? Acknowledging the inherent strangeness of the whole narrative,
Right.
while also validating the potential for enjoyment and its sheer inventiveness and its willingness to just embrace the absurd.
And with a final adjustment of his cowl and a direct address to you, the listener, our protagonist delivers the perfect closing line. Next time, I'll bring you back up. And snacks.
Words to live by.
In any universe.
Yeah, that final line perfectly encapsulates the protagonist's blend of weary competence and a touch of lightheartedness, even facing overwhelming odds, the addition of snacks. It just injects that moment of relatable practicality into the most extraordinary circumstances.
So to recap our dive into the deep end of the bizarre today, we've explored a world where Batman, ninjas, Yakuza, they all collide against this backdrop of multiverse-bending events, all with the unexpected assistance of a chaotic good glitter mage. It's a wild concoction, for sure, but within that seeming madness, there's a surprising internal consistency, I think, and a definite method to the mayhem.
Yeah, the key insights here are probably the effective blending of genres. You've got superhero, anime, sci-fi, fantasy, all mixed up. Right. The skillful use of humor, too, to enhance the absurdity without actually undermining the stakes. And that underlying sense of a larger, interconnected narrative that allows for such creative and, frankly, unexpected character interactions and plot developments.
So for you, our intrepid listener, who's journeyed through this fast-paced and, let's be honest, undeniably peculiar narrative with us, what can you take away? I think it's a reminder that even in the most outlandish scenarios, whether it's in fiction or maybe even in the complexities of life, there are often underlying structures, character motivations, moments of surprising clarity to be found. Hopefully this deep dive sparked a few of those aha moments as we navigated this wonderfully weird world. If you appreciate stories that dare to break the mold, that aren't afraid to be a little bonkers, then the narrative approach in this excerpt offers some fascinating insights into how seemingly disparate elements can actually be brought together in an engaging and memorable way.
Yeah, this exploration of Batman.Ninja.vsyakuza.League, it sort of encourages us to consider the potential for unexpected connections, right? Hidden logic, even in the most chaotic situations.
Definitely.
It prompts us to look beyond just the surface-level absurdity and appreciate the unique coherence that can emerge from seemingly disparate elements.
But on that thought, maybe a final question for you to ponder. What seemingly unconnected ideas or situations in other stories, or perhaps even in your own experiences, might actually be linked in surprising and meaningful ways? Maybe there's a hidden Minkyo spirit waiting to be discovered in the most unexpected corners of reality. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.